Okay, so everybody knows we're recording this this session as well. So like I was saying, it's not intended to be a comprehensive list of sailing terms and boating terms and things like that, but more what are the common terms you're going to run into? What's the common terms that a novice sailor is going to run into? Most of the diagrams that you see in that document came from this book. Okay, this is the book I used in my ASA 101 class. I think they also use it in 103, if I remember right. So with that, what I'm going to do is share my screen. What I thought I would do is I don't want to go through each page, every term that's identified on the page, or all that. Every definition that's on one of the pages of the definitions and things like that. But I do want to go through the document. And so if anybody has any questions on anything, on any of the diagrams, ask about it. The one thing that I wanted to point out on the very first one is the draft is from the waterline to the keel. It was pointed out to me that I forgot the other term called air draft, which is from the waterline to the very topmost part of the boat that you're on, whether it is the top, of course, in a sailboat, it's probably going to be the top of the mast, or whatever's on the top of the mast. Could be your VHF antenna or whatever. On a power boat, it could be the Dodger, it could be anything that's on it. It could be something that's loaded on a boat, like some of the container ships and things like that. So, but air draft is from the waterline up, draft is from the waterline down. And then just some standard terms on some of the nomenclature on the boat. What's companionway, the binnacle, where's the cockpit, et cetera, et cetera. If anybody has any questions, and I thought it was good to show some of the lines, like the bow lines. The forward spring line keeps the boat from going backwards. The aft spring line keeps the boat from going forwards. The bow lines and the stern lines are to keep the boat centered in the slip. Fenders will typically have some pennants attached to them so that you can attach them to the boat. Additionally, there's a fender shown here with the piling. You'll see that the fender is horizontal. Typically what you do is it's the opposite of what you're fending off from. So in this case, we're fending off from a vertical piling, so the fender is put on horizontally. If that piling wasn't there and it was just the finger pier, maybe the piling was underneath or something like that, the fender would probably be hung vertically, because the finger pier, there's a horizontal surface and you're fending off the horizontal. And there's also a picture of a cleat there and things like that.
Hey, I got a comment. When you're
Sure, go
putting
ahead.
fenders over the side of the boat, just make sure you're not doing it near a porthole or a window or something, because that's the weak spot of the hull.
That's a good point, Bob. Thanks.
Yeah. Gary,
Yep,
David
go ahead.
here. I was just also going to say that not every boat comes equipped with, cleats midship for spring lines. But sometimes you can be equipped, like we have a Catalina 320, and it did not have, midship cleats for spring lines, but we were able to purchase them and, have them installed on our tracks. And I think it's one of those things you should have, because it really is important to stabilize the boat.
And if you don't have those midship cleats, how would you attach a spring line? I think what I would do then is I would go from either my aft cleat or my bow cleat to a cleat on the finger pier that is approximately midships.
Use the stanchions, maybe.
Possibly.
When we've rafted up, sometimes we've used the shroud as it passes through the deck.
Any more discussion, or shall I go on? Then we talk about the parts of the sails, what the difference between the Genoa and the jib does not overlap the main. Most of the boats that we charter as a sail club are going to have two sails on them. There'll be a sloop rig. We have chartered in the past, I think a couple times we've had boats that also have a second foresail called a staysail, and that would be called a cutter rig. I tried to point out what the telltales are and where you might be able to find those on a boat or on a sail, excuse me. And one of the interesting things is the tack of the sail. Tack is used about at least 3 different ways when you're sailing. One is the tack is where the lower part of the foot of the sail is fixed to the mast. Then we have a little closer look at some of the hardware on the sail. Most of the sails that we'll see that we charter are going to have a roller furling rig on the jib. Let me scroll back up here. I did have a picture of a roller furler, and the jib is attached to the roller furler and then rolls up rather than being hanked on. And it's showing here a jib hank. If you don't have a roller furler, then you'll have this little clip that attaches this jib to the forestay. And this is some of the hardware that you'll find on the jib. The main halyard, the jib halyard, the sheets, things like those are called running rigging. The shrouds, forestay, backstay, things like that, they don't move as you adjust the sails. They're called standing rigging. And some of the other things that you might find at the top of the mast are the VHF antenna, the fly, also known as a wind vane windicator. And then I wanted to show a good picture of the blocks, especially the main sheet. You'll see it go a number of times through the blocks. And also the traveler. This traveler is shown as being attached to the stern of the boat. Many times what we'll see on the boats that we charter is the traveler being attached right in front of the companionway or in front of the Dodger, if you will. And the reason that the main sheet goes through a number of blocks, it gives you a mechanical advantage each time it goes through. It helps with the mechanical advantage so that you can control this big sail that's the main sail. You can control it without too much effort. I use that. That's a relative term, I know. And then I go into, I do provide, and what I try to do in this document is to provide a definition of many of the things that are shown on the diagrams and the pictures and things like that. Unless anybody has, I don't intend to go through each one of these definitions. If anybody has any questions about them, please feel free to speak up. And we talk about, this list of definitions was more about the boat and what you're going to find on the boat. The next set of definitions is more about the sails themselves and the terminology used in the sails and some of the things that will that pertain to the sails themselves. And then when we start to sail, we have just some examples of the wind here. The wind is, say we're sailing north and the wind's from the northeast. The wind's going to be on the starboard side of the boat. That'll be the windward side of the boat. And leeward is away from the wind, or on the other side from the wind, which in this case, leeward would be the port side of the boat. So the last couple of things that I wanted to talk about was tacking. And I did say that tack was used in a number of different ways. One, it's what holds the foot of the sail to the mast. Tack is also the direction that you're sailing. And when you tack, you move the bow of the boat through the wind. So here the wind, again, is from the top of the page. We're sailing along and we would be sailing on a starboard tack here. Now I can't sail into the wind, so I make a tack, and now I'm on a port side, a port tack. I've turned the bow of the boat through the wind. The other term that I want to make sure that everybody was familiar with was jibing. Jibing is the opposite of a tack. Rather than turn the bow through the wind, we turn the stern through the wind. So in this case, again, in this case, I'm on a port tack because the wind is blowing over the port side of the boat. I turn so that the stern of the boat goes through the wind. And at the end of my jibe, I'm now on a starboard tack with the wind blowing over the starboard side of the boat. And then that's followed with a number of the terms that we just talked about and were shown in the previous pages. So again, like I said, most of what I had and the pictures that were in here came from this ASA textbook. I also got some stuff out of Chapman's, and then also from my logbook from ASA and definitions coming from Wikipedia. And that's pretty much the end of my presentation. Again, is there any discussion? Does anybody want to go back over anything? Anybody want to have another look at anything?
I like to mention that air draft is a new term to me. So just to make sure I'm using it right, I'm assuming that the present air draft of the Moskva is a negative number at this point.
I didn't know you could turn what is that, a cruiser? I didn't know you could turn a cruiser into a submarine. But that's the end of my presentation. If there's no more discussion, I'm going to stop the recording. We can do a little socializing and tell more war stories. So first I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
Everybody should go back to the full screen now.